Waiting for the studio director to give us the go-ahead. Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Toronto Spirit Society. Those who are coming for the first time, those who are returning, those who are watching us through the internet, welcome. It's great to see you all here. And the TSS is only here because all of us, we are the Toronto Spirit Society. And everything we do is thinking about ourselves, thinking about our spiritual enlightenment, thinking about our betterment. And in tough times around the world, the only thing we really directly control is what we do, what we think. And this is why it's so important for us to make choices. This month is actually the month of the gospel. We have been studying every Sunday about the gospel of Jesus because there's no Spiritist doctrine without Jesus. And as we saw in the previous Sundays, the gospel is all about actions, making choices. Today, we all made a choice. We chose to wake up, to maybe leave other interests and preferences aside, to be here, to listen about the gospel, to help ourselves to cope with our daily challenges that we all have. So it is certainly a good choice. And today, the lecture is from our sister Catarina. She will talk to us about charity. Without charity, there is no salvation. Very important topic. And before we go there, we'll have our friend Paul giving us the initial prayer and also the initial reading. And then we'll follow through the lecture. And at the very end, we will have our healing passes. And followed by our final announcements. So Paul, please.
Your importance lies in what you do for your own benefit. With you or without you, life goes on. The world continues its march. Do not believe that you are the holder of exceptional resources, without whose presence life would disappear and humanity would decay. Your gains and losses are an accounting of your real values. Be simple, become humble, like a lamp in the presence of the sun, or the sun in the presence of a galaxy. God our Father, Jesus our guide, and all the good spirits who join with us each Sunday morning at this time, let us join together one more time in this blessed opportunity to hear the words the very essence of Christ's teaching, that we may hear them with an open mind, but also an open heart, that we may go forth today and tomorrow, living better for the few moments that we dedicated here today. And we know this will happen through your grace and your good energy and your goodwill that you send us each moment of our lives. In Jesus' name.
It's over there. Thank you. It may not work. If it doesn't work, I'll be your
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Online and in presence here. It's a pleasure being here today. A topic of the month is the New Testament, and basically based on the Jesus' teachings. And for us as Spiritists, we know that we see Jesus as the highest example of charity and moral examples. Based on the theme of the month, that topic came to my mind. I like the theme. The gospel is my Bible, and I've been doing the gospel at home. I just passed this chapter 15, that talks about without charity there's no salvation. So I decided to talk about this today. I almost gave up because I was like, but it's so simple. Everybody knows about it. Why should I talk about it again? But I said, well, if there is a couple of chapters at least talking about charity, maybe it's important to go back to the base today. And that's the beauty about TSS. We have, as we're talking today, different speakers and different approach. So today is going to be, it's working. Yes. Spiritism 101. I'm really going back to the base today. And maybe it's going to be a test in the end for everybody, since it's something we talked a lot. If you're a Spiritist, you know about charity. By the end, we'll know how we're doing in this grade, the charity grade. And that shouldn't be this one. That's not the presentation.
No?
Maybe you're gonna have to use mine. I sent you the wrong one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Alright.
Well, I'll try my best. I'll try my best without my notes now.
Or you go with your notes and we go without the PowerPoint. I prefer to keep your notes and we don't need the PowerPoint.
No, let's see how I'm gonna do my.
You
Sorry
don't
about.
have the connector for Mac, right? So it's not
Okay,
gonna work.
so it's gonna be without notes.
Yep.
Oh, I apologize for that.
Okay. No problems. So. just leave
I'll
it
try to quickly send it to you. No, never mind, I can't. Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
There's a flash drive around. Maybe you can pass me the flash drive and then.
Do you have it there?
Okay. So let's try that quickly, and I will start. Thanks.
That was quick.
Um.
You can continue.
Yes. So based on the topic, the first slide is going to be just a graphic about how the Bible is divided. And we have the Old Testament and the New Testament. And for the Spiritist, this gospel that we study here is basically the New Testament. And the New Testament, because it's about Jesus. And based on the New Testament, which is the theme of the day, we're going to talk. I'm going to talk about charity, but I noticed that most of the passages that are brought here today as an example came from Matthew. So today I would like to bring a little bit of Matthew and his teachings to share with you. And Matthew, just a little background on Matthew. He was a Jewish that was living in the Galilee, working as a tax collector to the Romans when Jesus approached him. So he was a sort of a bad guy. First of all, because he was asking money from people, and he was a Jewish collecting money for the Romans. So he was a little bit aside from society, doing a job that wasn't any nice job. So Jesus approached him and asked him to follow him. And Matthew actually lived with Jesus through experience, through passage that we're going to go through. And he's actually the first book of the New Testament. It comes from Matthew. He gives the genealogy of Jesus. So I'd like to bring attention of who we're going to be bringing on to the scene today. And the first topic on the chapter, without charity there is no salvation, it's asked, it says, what's needed to be saved? What's needed in order to be saved? And then Matthew brings a passage, and he describes that what's needed to be saved is going to be like the day of the final judgment. We are Spiritists. We know that there's no such a judgment, final judgment like that. But again, it's a passage, it's a parable, so we have to learn the teachings that it brings to us. And it says that what needs to be in order to be saved is like the story when he tells that Jesus is going to be there with all the angels sitting on his throne, and then he's going to be like the shepherd separating the goats from the sheep. And Jesus is going to separate the people when they come to him at the final judgment. And then he's going to look at the people he put on the right side, and then he's going to say, you come to the land that's being prepared to you by our Father. You who served me when I needed help. You who fed me when I was hungry. You who gave me water when I was thirsty. You who gave me clothes when I needed a vest. And the people on the right side didn't understand it well, would ask Jesus, Lord, I don't remember feeding you. I don't remember giving you water. I don't even remember, never had vests or clothes to wear. And then Jesus is going to say, verily I say to you, when you did that to your brother, to your neighbor, you're doing that to me. And then he's going to look to the ones on the left side, and then he's going to say, you, when I needed, you're not there to help me. When I was hungry, you never offered me food. And for that, you're going to have to pay for your acts. And you're going to go to hell. So this is a story that the point of what Matthew tells here is that we need to do something in order to go to a better place when you discarnate, as we know. And that brings us the topic of today, which is without charity, there is no salvation. And today I'd like to bring specially how to do good. And again, it sounds very basic, but the lesson today is going to be basically about how do we do it, how to do charity. We come here, we are volunteers, but maybe some of you are going to relate it to things that when I was doing the gospel at home with my girlfriends, I noticed that, wow, I did good, but I'm not doing it the way it should be done. The chapter 13 on this book talks exactly about that. How to do the charity, how to do good. And Matthew again, on the first passage of this chapter, that the title is Do Good Without Ostentation. So that's the first step you have to take when doing good. Is it working?
Yes.
Yay!
Is that the right side?
Let's go back. So that's the passage I was talking to you. A little picture so we can kind of see the passage what Matthew was describing about. So here we are. Thank you, Dickley. How to do good. Today we're going to learn a little bit about it, if we don't know yet. As I said, by the end, you're going to analyze yourself and see where you fit doing the right thing. And Matthew brings this very important saying that actually Jesus said at the Sermon of the Mountain. Jesus said, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. What do we mean by that? We have the type of people that do good things to people, and they really expect someone to thank you for that. They basically humiliate the person that they're doing good, and that's even worse. But there are the type of person that does good to someone, don't tell anyone, don't show off. There's no ostentation like in the old times where the rich would come with the money and put in front of the offering box of the church and leave with a pride and with a vain. There are the people that don't do that, but they leave a little thing behind to show their deeds. For example, you're going to tell me it's case number 1 or 2, if there is ostentation or not. The time we were having this gospel at home, a girl that goes to a Kabbalah center. Coincidentally, we're talking about the same. We're talking about the gospel, doing charity without ostentation, and they're talking about that at their Kabbalah center. And she says, Kata, that's very interesting actually. When I went to my meeting last week, a girlfriend of mine that was doing the course, she came from the parking lot, and she saw a car parked there with the ticket expiring in like 2-3 minutes. What does she do? Very generous. She goes to the meter, puts a couple of coins, gets the ticket, puts in the car. Isn't that great? Someone was going to get a ticket. She did charity and she didn't tell anyone. She goes to the course and she shares what she just did as a form of an example. To her own surprise, the responsible for the meeting that day said, it's very nice what you did, but if you're expecting any recompense from God or from the universe, you're not going to get it. And she was like, but the person who I helped doesn't even know. I'm not showing off I did some good. But somehow, like that woman, we look for applause from someone. And that's exactly what Jesus says in this passage. When you're doing good, we don't need to share. And maybe you're going to say, but I just want to give a good example. It's not up to us to give examples by sharing the good deeds we did. Just do it. God, the universe is the one that's being aware of what's going on. So we don't need to share. If you're still looking for the approval or for the applause, the recognition of someone, it's because we're still earthly connected to the material things. Why do we need? Because we need to feel good. So this act of it's a vain, it's an ego that expects these recompense. So that's an example of doing good without ostentation, believe it or not. And as I said, there is the worst, the ones that actually expect someone to recognize the good action that they did with a smile, with a thank you. So you can say, you're welcome. This you're welcome sometimes is so selfish. When you say, you're welcome, you glow in selfish. So let's pay attention to that you're welcome that we say. The true charity has a two side. It's a moral and it's a material benefits. If you really want to do a beautiful charity, you're going to be case number 3. You're going to help someone and pretend that they are helping you. For example, another girl gave me a good example. She's friend of this senior lady, a widow, lonely, and she complains. She said that she's lonely. What did the girl do? She calls her and say, I need your help. I'm not doing okay today. Can I come and just talk for a bit? She doesn't need that. But she knows that the old lady needs help. And she doesn't want to make her feel bad about wasting her time going there. So she says, I need you. Can you help me? That's the true charity. You don't need to make someone aware that they're giving someone to you. But if you can make the opposite and making them help you or know that they're helping you, that's the beauty of it. Another good example on how to do charity. It's do it without accepting recompense. And I'm sure at least one person here is gonna relate to it. Sometimes we expect the thank you. And Luke comes to us with the passage about the dinner where Jesus says, invite the poor and the lame. How many of us here are friends of a friend because, I don't know, he's a doctor and it's nice to know a doctor in Canada? Or a lawyer, or someone that has influence in the TV and the movie because I'm going to see, September, the film festival, I'm going to get nice parties. And you keep on inviting that person to do stuff with you just because you know there's a way you're going to get something back from the good actions you're doing to that person. And Jesus says, when you have a party, a dinner, don't invite your rich friend, your brother, because he's going to give you something back. Well, if you are truly friends with those people, that's nothing wrong with that. But just to stop and think, couldn't you invite the old lady that's alone at home to your dinner? So invite them too. Invite the ones who actually would be taking some advantage on their side of the invitation that you're making. Maybe they need they need a little bit of socialization with someone. Another example is based on the widow's mite. Everybody heard about it, but let's talk about a little bit about that again. Jesus was watching these people coming and drop money at the offertory box. He had his disciples around him, and as you can see here, people would come with tons of coins, gold, money for the charity, and leave, as I said, with the pride of I did something good today and everybody saw it. I'm influencing the city. And then comes this widow, a poor lady without a husband, and puts a little 2 cents into the offertory box. That's when Jesus catches everybody's attention of these disciples and says, that woman today donated more than everybody else here. Because she gave basically all she had. She was poor and she still took money from her pocket to donate to people that could be even more difficult situation than her. So what can we learn from this passage? First of all, we don't need to have money to do charity, to help. She was poor. And second, she's thinking about other people that are in situation equal or worse than her. She's thinking about the other. And that's what brings to the next slide here. The true charity happens when you have humility. When you put others first by giving up something that you have. And I don't know how much we can do relating to this. I used to say that besides Christmas, there is a month that is considered a most charitable month. Who would guess which month? Here in Canada. Who would guess which month that would be? I'm going to say April. No, I'm going to say April. Anybody has a guess why? Because it's spring cleaning. Right? It's the charitable month. We have an old couch, We have an old sweater. Let's donate and do something good. There's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong. Some people need, and it's nice that we can share. In Brazil, we don't share that much. It's even worse. And here we give it away because we know we can buy more. It's easier for us to give it away. But if you stop and think, are you thinking about them first? You're making some space in your basement, in your living room, in your drawers, so you can buy more. So it's a charity, but if you want to expect some recompense in some way in the future for the good that you did, it's not going to be quite like that, because we're not thinking about others first. Again, I don't want to judge anybody. I do that too, but it's just a little test to see where we are sitting here today, and that's what Jesus taught us. So we need to aim for that. We need to aim for the day where we're going to be shopping for the kids and for the poor kids that are not part of the family. Something like that. The day we're going to be thinking about everybody, or as much as we can, thinking about others. Keep donating when you do your spring cleaning, but just think about if you can do more when doing charity. And the book's clear when it says, if you want to do charity, you can find 1,000 ways to do it. But you have to do it with your heart. And that brings the next key. So we talked about how to do good, not letting everybody know what you're doing. We talked about sharing what you have with the poor, asking them to join your life somehow. At a dinner, as Jesus gave an example, but it could be any example. We talked about the widow's mite, that we can do good with whatever we have, but we have to think about the other first. And how to have this humility, how to be so humble to think about others first. The key is compassion. We'll only be able to think about the others first when you have compassion. And compassion is when you feel what the other person is going through. Compassion is not feel sorry for the poor, for the sick, or for the one who needs help. Compassion is look at someone as you look to someone you love, and you relate to it. You feel their pain, you feel their suffering. The moment you feel that, I'm sure each one of you here is going to think of them first. If you have something to do and you see someone you like that is in need, that is in suffering, you're going to stop everything. And even if it's give a hug, that's what we need to feel every day when you go around. Should I give money to the beggar? It's a question that everybody has. Should I give money to the beggar? It's like the spring cleans. You can give the money. You can donate. But you have, at some point, you're going to have to feel the compassion for your brothers, for your neighbors, for the ones around us. We can start with the family, and that's why it's the beauty of the reincarnation. We start with them. We start with them. So compassion is the key. Because compassion, deeply felt, is love. And it sounds simple, but the feeling doesn't come right away. And love is when you devote yourself to someone. It's when you stop thinking about yourself and you're going to do something for the other. It's when you forget yourself. So the key is that feeling that we have to. Sometimes we pass by people, problems, and we don't relate to it. We can do charity. A true charity we cannot do without that feeling in us. Because when we have that, you're going to be doing a beautiful job with charity. And there is the case when you do good and we're paid with ingratitude. And some people even given up doing something good. If you ever gave up doing something good to someone because you were not recognized, or if the person never couldn't care less about you after so many deeds you did to her or to him, not my words, but Jesus' words, you're being selfish. The moment you stopped because the person was not giving back to you somehow, it's only because you're being selfish. It's because you're expecting a repay back, and charity doesn't expect that. And his words of encouragement is, any charitable act that you do is like a seed. Maybe it's not going to be germinating now, but in the future it will. Maybe in the next life you're going to get the good thing that you did. We're going to see in our another slide, we need to do good to the neighbors because we're doing that to Jesus, we're doing that to God, we're doing that to the whole universe. And somehow we're going to be repaid for that. I was listening on the radio this week while preparing this presentation, an example of a story of a man who loves chestnuts, and he ate as much chestnuts as he could. He was at his 70, 60 something. And he decided to plant a chestnut tree because he loves it. So he goes to the store to buy the seeds, and the sales guy says, I know you like it, but you know it takes 50 years for it to give chestnuts to you, right? You're not going to get anyone like 50 years. And he was like, I know, my dear, but I spent my whole life eating chestnuts. I think it's my time to plant a tree for someone in the future to eat like I did. And I'm going to tell even more. We know that we come back here. Maybe he'll be eating chestnut from that chestnut tree one day. That's how it works. That's how our lives are connected. That's how we pay for what we did, and we get the recompense for what we did too, if we did good. When we talk about saving the environment, when we talk about saving the water or the energy or the food or whatever it is, it's hard to think about it because we have so much right now. I couldn't care less. I'm always going to have, well, first of all, we never know, anything can change in a second. But even if it doesn't change so drastically, we're going to reincarnate here. And if we did that big damage to a city, to a country, to whatever it is, a school, we know how the universe works, so we're going to be somehow living the consequences of our acts. So plant the seed. Put away if you're not paid with recompense for what you did, because any benefit is never lost. That's very clear in the book. Another way of charity. That's a hard one. Patience. And patience with others. How difficult it is to do something good. Someone complains at you and doesn't like you. It's not easy. You want them to give up. That's when Jesus says patience is a really beautiful form of charity. But he brings patience also as the situation around you, the difficult family we have, or the difficult parents, kids, someone you somehow is living next to you and you have to deal with it. Have the patience the patience to go through it with the faith that we need from God. As Kardec says, all the teachings from Jesus, they're based on two things. And I think that just complements patience. So everything that Jesus teaches is based on obedience and resignation. Obedience is when we use the brain and we do things because we know it's the way it should be done. And resignation is when our heart consents. So I would define patience as a mix of both. We know, we have the faith. We need to understand with our brain and our heart, so it makes us go through without so much pain, without so much complaining, because everything happens for a reason, and it happens for the good, for the best of each one of us. So when Jesus says patience, he's saying, I'm here for you always. Let your heart go through it stronger. And you're going to, in the end, understand better and recognize where everything comes from. So be patient with the ones around you. Let it go when something is not the way you would like it to be. Maybe you understand in the future that it shouldn't even be the way you want it. We're still a little child evolving. So patience is a good teaching that we need to live through. And with that patience comes forgiveness. And again, Matthew gives the parable of the unmerciful servant. Why forgive? We pray, forgive us the way we forgive others. But do we really forgive others? And this parable, if you don't remember, talks about... So Matthew compares the kingdom of heaven, our next life, or the final judgment. So he compares the heaven with the king that came to a point where he wanted to close accounts with his servants, and some servants were owed them money. So this one comes to him, and he says, well, I gave you 1,000 talents and it's time for you to pay me back. And he was like, I don't have it right now. I don't have the money. So he says, okay, I'll take your wife and kids as a payment. They're going to be my slaves until you pay me back. Servants please, cries, and humbly ask him for forgiveness. And he gives the forgiveness. And then later on, he comes back to his field, and a friend of his who owed him money doesn't have the money to pay him back, the servant. He goes back and someone owes him money. And what does he do? He punishes him and sends him to jail. Right after being forgiven by the king. Other servants saw the scene, saw what happened, and decided to tell the king, who of course gets really upset and decides to call him back. I forgave you. Why can't you forgive? And then the king sends him to jail. So the message of this passage is, how can you expect things from others if we don't even have ourselves? So a good way of, in the future, being forgiven by God, by the universe, by the final judgment, whatever the way you see it, is by forgiving now. Just understand that for now, even if you can't really forgive, try. One day we're going to be forgiving naturally, like a mother forgives a child that does something bad. She gets no offense. I like the relation of mother and daughter because it's the purest love that can exist. The forgiving is every day. And we need to feel that with everybody at some point one day. Because that's how Jesus felt with us when he came here. After all we did to Jesus, even killing him and hanging. So forgiving is the basic for us to one day be forgiven, because we're not perfect. So let's be a little bit selfish and think about us forgiving others. That's a good start. And as I mentioned before, more material charity and moral charity. Again, Matthew brings a great answer that Jesus gave when he was asked about the most important commandments. And he said that Jesus said, love God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. And he seconded with, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. I could have just that slide for the whole presentation. Matthew was clear, Jesus' commandments. If you love, we cannot love God, we cannot come to church, to the Spiritist Center, praising God, if we don't love the neighbor. So they are really connected to each other. And loving the neighbors is everything that I mentioned before. It's doing the charity, it's thinking about them first. Because somehow we're all one. We're like the cells of our bodies. We're all dependent on each other in some way. And they have to be healthy here, so the rest of the body is a healthy body. So if you had that commandment in our hearts, in our day-to-day lives, that would be the only thing necessary for the salvation, for a better place, for a better universe, for a better living for everybody. And on the chapter 13, our Spiritist says, can I practice the beneficence with my friends and the people that have the same belief? Does that count? If I'm good to everybody here at CSS, because we think alike, we like each other, come here, we hug, and it's so nice, and everybody's... But when I go out, there are people that I don't relate, they think different. Can I do charities just for people that are... Does that count as charity? It does not. Because we have to do charity to love the neighbor. And the neighbor is everybody. And again, I bring here a little... There was a priest here missing. It's the parable of the Good Samaritan. I try to bring a little examples from the Bible to match the theme of the month. You might have heard that a lot. So, this guy was bitten by thieves. And he was left there, hurting in pain. A priest comes by, let him there. A Levite comes by, all religious oriented people. He was just a poor person over there, hurt. And here comes a Samaritan. And surprisingly, he went against his culture, but he saw the man lying there. And what does he do? He takes him, put on his horse, takes to the city, makes sure he's well taken care, gives money to the person that's taking care of the wounds and everything, and comes back to check on him. So no, we cannot have exclusive beneficence. We have to do good to all. If someone comes here and it's from other religions, don't we open up the doors? Of course. We shouldn't have doors to anything. And that's why I invite the poor. Every slide relates to each other. Every slide that I put here today, it's talk the same thing in a different way. So maybe one is going to relate more to each other here. And just a recap. How to do good? Eventually it's gonna come.
Just to train our patience.
There you go. I trained a lot that today. It was part of the script. So patience, forgiveness, no ostentation, compassion, humility, love God, your neighbor, obedience, resignation. Do not expect recompense ever. That's the basic that we have for charity. And that's my last slide. That's why I was wrong the first time. I knew it. So let's give the gift of charity. I think it's a simple. I feel even silly being here talking about it because we all know about that. But maybe it was a call to come here and talk about that again. I hope we leave today with something about how to do good. Checking on, we can always do better. That's for sure. We can do charity with words. We can pray for someone. We can listen. We can give our time if we have time. We can do charity at work. If you're busy, even at work, sometimes everybody has a deadline. And you can help someone who depends on you for their deadline. That's a great way of charity. You can do charity anywhere you go, on the subway. Sometimes you wake up and it happened to me. I went out. I was still, sleepy morning. And I go into the subway and I sort of stepped on someone's foot. The person looked back at me with such a smile. That smile made my day. It totally transformed Catarina that day. We can do that. Can you imagine if you give that smile that I received that day? It was the best charity that woman could do to me. She could have been, okay. No, she was like, it's okay. With a very genuine smile. That totally transformed me that day. So we can start with that until we go deep into what we saw today. But just, if you can't do much for now, a smile is what I suggest for everyone here today. So you make someone feel better. Can you imagine if we have that every day happening? What a happy place would be living in. And if something bad happened to my day that day, or if something did something bad to me, I would think about the example I had in the morning, and I would I think I would approach differently. So let's give a smile to the neighbor. Let's start with that. And then later we'll go deep. Okay? That's all I have for you today. Thank you. Oh yeah.
Thank you very much. There's some Q&A time, about 10 minutes. Any comments or questions from anyone? Or folks on the internet, Thiago?
I want to thank you. When you just summarized everything at the end, I think it was very, because you said something about there's more or less. I think that is really the core, It was nice because you brought the core of basically what the gospel is, the message to put in practice. Thank you for that. And just one thing that for me, I think all those elements, when you were talking about, what we can do, what we can give, I am the first person that I need to give all of them. That smile that you're talking about, developing this for myself and saying that sometimes I wake up not okay and still be charitable with myself and say, that's okay. I also have problems, and be friend with those elements is charity for ourselves. Thank you.
You made me reminded of, one of those Chinese cookies? Mm-hmm. There's a little slip of paper inside. I opened one once and it said, if you cannot smile, you shouldn't open a shop.
That's true.
Which means to serve, you have to smile. And we all have struggles, right? But if we are really serious about serving others, no matter what we do, I think the smile is a good form of charity. Paul?
When the native people in North America saw the Europeans arrive here, they realized very soon that they were suffering from a mental illness. They called it wittico. Wittico means that the white man wanted to accumulate many, many more goods than he could consume in one lifetime. This is now the basis of our financial structure. That's why we have so many billionaires. In Native society, this was unheard of. Just one other thing, there's something called a mirror neuron. And it means that only certain species have it so far. Humans can have it. Elephants, dolphins, and primates. And it means that when somebody's in trouble, you do not see the distinction between you and them. And that's your compassion. You do things, you save their lives, you do something, and you don't know why you're doing it because it is part of that. And I think Jesus was ahead of his time.
Yeah, for sure. He's the example. He had that. We need to get that one day.
So you're saying something that's, it feels silly that we are repeating this because we all know that. If you remember, probably 2 Sundays ago, we were talking exactly about this, right? Where is the law of God written? Where is the gospel written? In our conscience. So why does Jesus or God had to send his emissaries to reveal those things to us? It's because we've forgotten or we simply ignored. Because it's convenient for us to forget and ignore those things so that we can dip ourselves into our vices or preferences, right? And selfishness. So for more than we know that, this is why Christianity is here. It's why Spiritism is here to remind us. And the analogy that we've done a few weeks ago was that every time we open the gospel is as if it was a post-it note in your refrigerator to remind you, do this or call someone or buy. It's a reminder because we all know that.
Yeah.
And it's still a struggle for us. My wife works in a daycare. I'll tell that story. And it was lunchtime. There was a break, snack time. And they put the snacks for the kids. And there was one kid that took the whole bowl of cucumbers and threw his plate and put it back empty. And he was there. And one of my wife's colleagues said, "What you doing?" "Well, I'm eating the cucumbers." "But you took it all." "Yes." "But how about the others?" "I don't care." "But how come you don't care?" "Well, my mom said she's paying the daycare and I can eat anything I want because she's paying. That's what she told me. So that's what I'm eating. I don't care about others. So this is how we have been educating our children. We think about them first and we teach them to think about them first. And here comes Jesus teaching us to think about the others first. And we do nothing. Because they say, "Oh, they are too young, let them be." And let them be when we see they are teenagers and they continue to think about themselves only. And they grew up and they are going to be the educators of tomorrow, the doctors of tomorrow, the lawyers of tomorrow, the governors of tomorrow. Right? So if we want to change the world, it starts with us individually. That's the only thing we can control. But we can do the best we can to influence our children. Because if we can influence one human being to be a better human being, that's how we can change tomorrow. If every home, every family focus on that, that's the day, we will see the day when humanity will transform one by one, seed by seed, right? So we still struggle. It's simple, but we struggle to do that. We struggle to do that within the temples. The apostles, the disciples, they struggle with themselves, right? And we see that struggle, and that's what the message of Jesus brings to us, right? We see things that we didn't want to see. We see the right thing to do, and when we look at what we do, it doesn't match, right? It doesn't match. But that's a good sign, because a while ago we were not even seeing that. We were not even acknowledging that. We were looking at ourselves as if we were perfect and the world is wrong.
Yeah.
The time we look at Jesus' teachings and look at us and we acknowledge there's something wrong, that's a good progress. That's a good sign. It's a sign of progress. It's the self-awareness that Allan Kardec, all the high evolved spirits invite us to develop. Self-awareness. We can't change if we don't see ourselves as we are. And from there on, it's a painful path. And I always remember Paul of Tarsus. And he acknowledged that when he wants to do good, he still do the wrong thing. Because those things are habits ingrained in us. And we cannot become saints from one day to the other. Even from one incarnation to the other. Right? And he talks about what he calls the battle within. Not my battle with another person, but my battle with myself. Right? And you see all the other philosophies in the Orient and Occident talking about that conflict, good and evil. We all have good and evil inside ourselves. That's the invitation of Jesus for us, to face that. And he says that the darkness can bother the light, but will never win. Only if we allow. Only if we permit. So I think that's a very important message, Catarina. Thank you for that.
Just a little simple thank in my case particularly. I'd like to thank because for me it was like a strength. I think it could be a strength for certain people who is struggling with some kind of things at home or with a co-worker or whatever. For me, I face it like this. It's just to gain some strength.
Yeah.
To remind me and gain strength. To continue pursuing the good.
I'll comment there and then after there.
Just verse that one day we met a lady and the others said, you were always smiling, you always have a good face, you never have a problem. And the lady answered, say, I had a lot of problems, but nobody needs to share my problems. Nobody needs to share my darkness for my problems. My problems. It is amazing lecture because bring to us exactly this. We don't need to fight with each other. We need to give our best smile until somebody hit us because I was accident and somebody will react different.
Yeah.
And it's a good example too on how we can still do good. Because sometimes I think I have so many problems, I have so much going on, I cannot do anything for anybody else. And that's a good example that we can always do something to the next, to us.
For me,
Antonio.
I believe we create a comfort zone, and it's very hard to go out of it. Very hard.
Yeah. And the zone gets stronger and stronger sometimes. It's really hard to get through. You're right. And maybe that's why we have to keep on reading the post-it, the post notes that we have. Smile today. That's a good one. Well, thank you.
So that's the battle within. We are all invited. And if we feel overwhelmed with the battle, let's use a dose of humility and ask for help. For those who are among us, and to Jesus, to our guardian angels, right? We have to ask for help. Thanks, Catarina.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to go for the final part of our meeting, which are our healing passes. I want to say thank you to those watching through the internet. I appreciate your presence, and God bless you all. See you next time.